Anywhere but here. Law and order in America takes a back seat. This is Law and Society. Please subscribe. Partial disclosure of Epstein's files has upended the lives of powerful and influential people all over the world. To princes, ambassadors, multi-billionaires, and CEOs, DOJ's disclosure amounted to opening Pandora's box. However, very few people in America who are mentioned in the files have been investigated, and none of them have been prosecuted. The man who is mentioned in the files more than anybody else currently occupies the Oval Office. His DOJ has adamantly insisted that Donald himself did not commit any crimes, per the disclosed documents. Donald says he has been exonerated by the disclosure of the files. But the truth isn't that simple. Not being charged for crimes does not mean you are cleared for any wrongdoing. Also, it is DOJ policy to never indict a sitting president. So even if the files showed Trump committed child sex crimes, he couldn't be prosecuted as long as he is president. And because child sex crimes don't have a statute of limitations and those charges can be brought at any time, that's yet another reason why Donald would want to remain president for the rest of his life. To his credit, lawyers and experts combing through the released files have not yet alleged any criminality by Trump so far. DOJ still has 3 million more files it says it will not make public for various reasons. First, that violates the Epstein Transparency Act. Second, it does not fulfill Trump's campaign promise of releasing all of the Epstein files. Attorney General Pam Bondi will likely not release those files unless Congress goes to court and the court compels DOJ to comply with the Transparency Act. DOJ will appeal, the case will reach SCOTUS, and then the High Court, will decide whether Pam Bondi's DOJ complied with the law or not. And if you don't trust a fair outcome from this current SCOTUS, you aren't the only one. And there's really nothing we can do about it. That's the most irritating part. So while many are being held accountable for their friendships with Jeffrey Epstein, there's a veil of obstruction over what's in the remaining undisclosed files. It could be information about victims, but DOJ has already violated that exception to the law by releasing survivors' names, information, and even nudes of survivors of child sexual abuse. The DOJ has re-traumatized these survivors while withholding half of the files that must be made public under the law. DOJ also has not announced any investigations or lawsuits against people mentioned in the disclosed Epstein files. Todd Blanche, the deputy of AG Bondi, said that some of the documents weren't released because they were part of ongoing investigations. Well, they've had that for over a year now, and they have those files for much longer than that, and nobody has been held accountable by Trump's DOJ. Of course, not Trump. In other political news, former presidents of Brazil and South Korea have been convicted of inciting insurrection and now are either in prison or are going into prison. I think Bolsonaro has a 37-year term or 27-year term, and South Korea has sentenced their former president to imprisonment for life. But in America, the man who incited the January 6th insurrection is back in power and tearing our republic apart from within. He's turning the rule of law on its head, pardoning fraudsters and violent insurrectionists while attacking and shooting peaceful protesters, at least 2 of them, to death. Current president of the country that led the liberal world order for the last 8 decades has abandoned the rule of law. This should and has concerned the whole world. Donald has reshaped how the world does business in just 1 year. He has challenged the basic requirements of law and process. He has turned America into a corrupt, hypocritical nation where the rule of law applies to regular people but not those in power. Accountability matters, regardless of somebody's position, power, or influence. That's why Americans used to believe and stand for. That's what we used to believe and stand for. Nobody is above the rule of law. But that is no longer the case in America. And that is a sad demise of a national order that showed the world the power of self-governance and equal administration of the law. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.